Maya had always been the careful type, the kind of person who planned everything, who kept her life organized and predictable. At 29, she worked as a pediatric nurse at the Children's Hospital in Portland, and honestly, she loved her job. There was something pure about helping kids, about seeing their little faces light up when they felt better. It made all the long shifts worth it. But her personal life, that was a different story. 3 years ago, she'd been through a breakup that left her feeling like she'd been hit by a truck, the kind of heartbreak that makes you question everything you thought you knew about love. After that, she'd built walls around her heart. Thick ones, the kind that keep everyone at a safe distance. Her routine became her comfort. Wake up at 6, go for a run with Luna, her golden retriever who she'd rescued 2 years back, then off to the hospital for 12-hour shifts that left her exhausted but fulfilled. Evenings were quiet. Maybe a book, maybe a show on Netflix, always with Luna's head resting on her lap. Her friends kept trying to set her up on dates, but Maya always had an excuse ready. She was too busy, too tired, too focused on her career. The truth was simpler. She was scared. The hospital charity gala wasn't even supposed to be her thing. Maya hated these fancy events where everyone dressed up and pretended to enjoy small talk while picking at overpriced food. But her supervisor had practically begged her to come, and well, sometimes you just can't say no to your boss. She was standing near the dessert table, debating between chocolate cake and leaving early when it happened. Someone bumped into her from behind, and her glass of wine went flying. Not onto her dress, thankfully, but straight onto the white shirt of the man standing next to her. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." Maya grabbed napkins, her face burning with embarrassment. The man looked down at his wine-stained shirt and then up at her. And that's when Maya really saw him. Daniel Cross. Those were the first words he'd say to her later. Just his name, simple and direct. But right then, all she noticed were his eyes. Dark, intense, the kind that seemed to look right through you. "It's okay," he said. And there was this hint of amusement in his voice. "I wasn't a fan of this shirt anyway." They both laughed, and suddenly the awkwardness melted away. Daniel helped her clean up, even though he was the one wearing the wine. They started talking, and Maya found herself forgetting about leaving early. He was an architect, he told her. Designed buildings that changed city skylines. When he talked about his work, his whole face lit up with passion. "I believe buildings should tell stories," he said, leaning in closer so she could hear him over the music.
"Every structure, every space, it should make people feel something." Maya felt something all right.
A flutter in her stomach she hadn't felt in years. They talked for over an hour about everything and nothing. About her work with kids, about his latest project, about their favorite coffee shops in Portland. Time just disappeared. When the evening was ending, Daniel asked for her number. Maya hesitated. That old fear crept back in, whispering warnings in her ear. But there was something about him, something that made her want to take a chance. So she gave it to him. He texted her the next morning. Just a simple, "Good morning. Coffee today?" Maya stared at her phone for 5 minutes before responding. "Yes," she typed back. Her heart was racing. Their first real date was at this little cafe near the river. Daniel showed up with a single sunflower because, he said, he remembered her mentioning they were her favorite. Who remembers details like that from one conversation? Maya was touched. The coffee date turned into a walk along the waterfront. Then the walk turned into lunch. Before she knew it, they'd spent the entire day together. Daniel was attentive in a way that felt new and exciting. He asked questions and actually listened to the answers. He remembered things, small things, like how she took her coffee or that she was allergic to shellfish. The next date came 3 days later. Then another. Then another. Within weeks, Maya felt like she was floating. Daniel would show up at the hospital with her favorite chai latte just because. He'd send texts in the middle of the day asking how her shift was going. Not the generic "how are you" texts, but real questions. Did that little boy with the broken arm get his cast today? He remembered the stories she told him. He introduced her to parts of the city she'd never explored. Art galleries where they'd wander for hours, discussing paintings and installations. Rooftop restaurants where they'd watch the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. He made everything feel like an adventure. Maya's friends noticed the change in her. She was smiling more, laughing more. The walls she'd built so carefully were coming down, brick by brick. For the first time in 3 years, she felt alive. Really alive. Not just going through the motions of her daily routine, but actually excited about life again. But then, small things started to happen. Little moments that Maya noticed but didn't quite know what to do with. Like when she mentioned a male colleague who'd helped her with a difficult case. Daniel's expression changed just for a second. His jaw got tight, his eyes harder. But then he smiled and the moment passed. Or the time they were at dinner and her phone buzzed. It was just her friend Jennifer checking in, but Daniel reached across the table. "Let me see," he said, and it sounded playful, but there was something underneath it. Maya laughed it off and showed him the text. "See? Just Jennifer being Jennifer." "You're too trusting," Daniel said, but he was smiling. "Not everyone has good intentions like you think they do." Maya thought it was sweet that he cared, that he worried about her. Her ex had barely noticed when she was gone for days. This felt different. This felt like someone actually cared. When Daniel suggested she wasn't spending enough time with him, that her friends were taking up too much of their time together, Maya started canceling plans. Just small ones at first. A coffee meetup here, a birthday party there. It seemed reasonable. She was in a new relationship. Of course she wanted to spend time with Daniel. That's what people in love do, right? 6 months into their relationship, Maya couldn't imagine her life without Daniel. He had become everything to her. The first person she thought about when she woke up, the last voice she heard before falling asleep. He'd moved into her apartment. After 4 months, and it had felt natural, like he'd always belonged there. They talked about the future constantly. Marriage, kids, growing old together. Daniel would describe their life in such beautiful detail. A house with a big backyard for Luna. Maybe another dog, too. 2 kids, he said, a boy and a girl. Sunday morning pancakes and family vacations to the coast. Maya would listen to him paint these pictures and feel her heart swell with hope. But somewhere around month 7, things began to shift. It was subtle at first, so subtle that Maya almost missed it. Daniel started making comments about her appearance. Little things that felt like observations wrapped in concern. "Those scrubs really don't do anything for your figure," he said one morning as she was getting ready for work. Maya looked down at her uniform, confused. They were just scrubs. Everyone wore them at the hospital. "Maybe you should go to the gym more," he suggested another time, his hand resting on her hip. "I'm only saying this because I care about you. I want you to be healthy." Maya started skipping desserts. She added an extra day at the gym to her routine, even though she was already exhausted from her shifts. When she laughed loudly at something funny during dinner with Daniel's colleagues, he squeezed her hand under the table. Hard. Later in the car, he was quiet. "You were really loud back there," he finally said. It was kind of embarrassing. Maya felt her cheeks burn. "I was just having fun." "I know, babe, but you need to be more aware of how you come across." People were staring. She started monitoring herself. How loud she laughed, how much she ate, what she wore. It was exhausting. But she told herself this was just part of growing up, of being in a mature relationship, compromising, adjusting, becoming better versions of themselves together. Her best friend Jennifer noticed something was off. They'd been friends since college, the kind of friendship that survives everything. But lately, Maya had been distant, canceling plans, cutting phone calls short, always with some excuse about being busy or tired. One Saturday, Jennifer showed up at Maya's apartment unannounced. Daniel answered the door, and Maya could see the tension in his shoulders immediately. "Jennifer, hey," Maya said, trying to sound casual. "I didn't know you were coming by." "That's because you never answer my calls anymore," Jennifer said, walking past Daniel into the apartment. "We need to talk." Daniel didn't leave the room. He sat on the couch, his presence filling the space like a shadow. Jennifer glanced at him, then back at Maya. "Alone," Jennifer added. "Anything you need to say to Maya, you can say in front of me," Daniel said calmly. "We don't keep secrets from each other." The conversation that followed was tense. Jennifer expressed her concerns. Maya was different, she said. Withdrawn. She never saw her friends anymore, barely talked to her family. Maya felt caught between 2 people she loved, and in that moment she chose Daniel. "Maybe you're just jealous," Maya said, the words feeling foreign in her mouth. "You've been single for so long, maybe you don't understand what it's like to prioritize a relationship." Jennifer's face fell. She looked at Maya like she was staring at a stranger. "That's not fair, and you know it." After Jennifer left, Daniel held Maya while she cried. "I know that was hard," he whispered into her hair. "But she was trying to come between us. Real friends support your happiness. They don't try to tear it down." Maya nodded against his chest, wanting desperately to believe him. Over the next few weeks, she saw Jennifer less and less. The same pattern repeated with other friends. They'd express concern. Daniel would frame it as jealousy or interference, and Maya would distance herself further. Her weekly video calls with her sister stopped. Her parents' invitations for Sunday dinner went unanswered. Maya told herself she was just busy, that this was temporary, that once things settled down with Daniel, she'd reconnect with everyone. But deep down she knew she was avoiding them because she couldn't handle their questions, their worried looks, their gentle suggestions that maybe something wasn't right. Work became her only escape, but even that started to change. Daniel called constantly during her shifts. If she didn't answer, he'd leave multiple voicemails asking where she was, who she was with, why she was ignoring him. Maya found herself stepping away from patience to send him quick texts, assuring him everything was fine, that she loved him, that she'd be home soon. One evening, Maya stayed late at work to help with a particularly difficult case. A 7-year-old boy had come in with complications from surgery, and Maya had bonded with him over the past week. His father was there that night, worried sick, and Maya spent extra time talking him through what was happening, explaining the treatment plan, offering comfort. She didn't think anything of it. This was her job. This was what she did. When she got home 2 hours later than expected, Daniel was standing in the kitchen. The apartment was dark except for the light over the stove. Luna was hiding in the bedroom. Maya could feel the tension before Daniel even turned around. "Where were you?" His voice was quiet. Too quiet. "I texted you. There was a case with one of my patients. I had to stay late. You were talking to someone." It wasn't a question. "Yes, the patient's father. I was doing my job, Daniel." What happened next, Maya would replay in her mind 1,000 times. Daniel's face changed. The man she loved disappeared, and someone else took his place. Someone angry, someone scary. He didn't touch her, but he didn't have to. He moved toward her fast, and his fist went into the wall right next to her head. The sound of impact echoed through the apartment. Maya felt the air move past her ear. She couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't think. "Don't you ever disrespect me like that again," he said, his face inches from hers. "You were flirting with him. I know you were." Then he left. Just walked out of the apartment, leaving Maya standing there, staring at the hole in the wall. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to sit down on the floor. Luna crept out from the bedroom and pressed against her side. Daniel came back 3 hours later with flowers and tears. He got on his knees in front of her, sobbing. "I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to me. I just love you so much, and the thought of losing you. I can't handle it. Please forgive me. It will never happen again. I swear on everything, it will never happen again." Maya held him while he cried. She told herself this was a one-time thing. Everyone loses their temper sometimes. He was under stress at work. She should have called instead of just texting. Maybe she had been too friendly with that father. Maybe she needed to be more careful. She told herself all these things because believing them was easier than facing the truth. The pattern became Maya's new normal, though she didn't have words for it yet. There would be days, sometimes weeks, when Daniel was the man she'd fallen in love with. Sweet, attentive, romantic. He'd bring her favorite takeout after long shifts, run her a bath, massage her tired feet while they watched TV. Those were the good days, and Maya clung to them like a lifeline. But then the tension would start to build. She could feel it in the air, thick and heavy. Daniel would become quiet, withdrawn. His jaw would tighten at random moments. He'd watch her with eyes that seemed to catalog her every movement, every word. Maya learned to recognize the signs, learned to make herself smaller, quieter, more careful. The explosion would come eventually. Sometimes over something big, sometimes over nothing at all. A dish left in the sink. A smile at the grocery store clerk. Being 5 minutes late coming home from work. It didn't matter. The anger would erupt and Maya would freeze, waiting for it to pass. Daniel never left marks on her body. He was smarter than that. But his words cut deeper than any physical wound could. He called her stupid, worthless, told her no one else would ever want her. Then came the destruction. More holes in walls, broken dishes. Once, her laptop thrown across the room during an argument she couldn't even remember starting. And then, like clockwork, came the apology. The tears, the promises, the gifts, a new necklace, concert tickets. Once, a weekend trip to the mountains where he was so loving, so perfect, that Maya convinced herself the bad times weren't real. This was real. This Daniel was the real one. She stopped telling people about the fights. What was there to say anyway? He never actually hurt her. He was just passionate, intense. That's what love looked like, right? The boring relationships were the ones that failed. At least Daniel cared enough to feel strongly. Maya found herself constantly managing his moods, trying to prevent the next explosion. She memorized his triggers, adjusted her behavior accordingly. She kept her phone face up on the table at all times so he could see every notification. She shared all her passwords with him. Email, social media, banking. He called it trust and transparency. Maya called it survival. Her performance at work started to suffer. She was always tired, always distracted. Her supervisor, Linda, a kind woman in her 50s who'd been nursing for 30 years, pulled her aside one day. "Maya, is everything okay? You seem different lately." "I'm fine," Maya said automatically. "Just tired." "You know how it is." Linda studied her face for a long moment. "If you ever need to talk, my door is always open." "About anything." Maya nodded and escaped as quickly as she could. She couldn't talk about it. What would she even say? That her boyfriend checked her phone every night? That she had to account for every minute she was away from home? That she'd stopped wearing makeup because he accused her of trying to attract other men? It all sounded so ridiculous when she thought about saying it out loud. Then came the day that changed everything. Maya was running late for work, rushing around the apartment looking for her keys. Daniel was in a mood. She could tell by the set of his shoulders, the way he was staring at his coffee cup. "You're always losing things," he said. "Do you know how incompetent that makes you look?" "I'm sorry, I just need to find my keys and I'll be out of your way." "Out of my way? This is my home too. Maybe if you weren't so scattered all the time, we wouldn't have these problems." Maya found her keys under a pile of mail. As she grabbed them, she felt a wave of nausea hit her. She barely made it to the bathroom before getting sick. Daniel appeared in the doorway. "What's wrong with you now?" "I don't know. Maybe something I ate." But even as she said it, Maya's mind was racing. She'd been feeling off for a few days. Tired, nauseous, emotional. And she was late. 2 weeks late. She bought a pregnancy test on her way home from work that day. Actually, she bought 3 just to be sure. All positive. Maya sat on the bathroom floor of the hospital, staring at the little plus signs, feeling her entire world shift. A baby. She was going to have a baby. With Daniel. Part of her felt a surge of hope. Maybe this would be the thing that fixed everything. Daniel would become the man she'd first met. They'd be a family. He'd said he wanted kids. Maybe a baby would give him the stability he needed, the purpose that would calm the storms inside him. But there was another part of her, a small voice she'd been trying to ignore for months that whispered something else. A baby meant she'd be tied to Daniel forever. There would be no easy escape, no clean break. Whatever this relationship was, a child would cement it permanently. She waited until after dinner to tell him. She'd cooked his favorite meal, set the table nicely, even lit candles. Daniel was in a good mood, talking about a project at work that was going well. Maya took a deep breath. "I have something to tell you. I'm pregnant." The smile fell from Daniel's face. For a moment he just stared at her and Maya couldn't read his expression at all. Then he spoke and his words were like ice. "Are you sure it's mine?" The question hung in the air between them. Maya felt like she'd been slapped. "What? Of course it's yours." "How could you even ask me that? You're at that hospital all day. Who knows what you're doing? Who you're talking to? You've always been too friendly with everyone. Daniel, I've never been with anyone else. You know that. You have my phone password. You track my location. You know where I am every second of the day." He stood up from the table, his chair scraping against the floor. "This is just great. Perfect timing, Maya. I'm trying to make partner at my firm and now this. I thought you wanted kids. You're always talking about our future, about, I wanted kids when we were ready. When I was ready. Not because you trapped me. Trapped him." Maya sat at that table long after Daniel had left the room, his words echoing in her head. She looked down at her still flat stomach and felt tears sliding down her cheeks. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. None of this was how it was supposed to be. Over the next few weeks, Daniel's behavior became more unpredictable. Some days he was excited about the baby, making plans, talking about names. Other days he acted like the pregnancy wasn't happening at all. And some days he was angry about it, as if Maya had done this to him on purpose. Maya tried to make herself useful, tried to be the perfect partner. She kept the apartment spotless, had dinner ready when he got home, never complained about the morning sickness or the exhaustion. She thought if she could just be good enough, patient enough, understanding enough, everything would work out. But deep down, she was starting to realize something. She was trapped, really trapped, and she had no idea how to get out. Tuesday morning arrived cold and gray. Maya had barely slept, her mind racing through the plan over and over again. Daniel left for work at his usual time, kissing her forehead and telling her he'd be home late because of his meetings. Maya watched him drive away and then stood at the window for 10 minutes, making absolutely sure he was gone. Then she moved. Jennifer and her brother Tom arrived with the truck at 9. They worked quickly and quietly like they'd rehearsed it, which they had. Multiple times. Clothes, important documents, her laptop, some of Luna's things. Maya didn't take much. Just what she'd need to start over. Standing in the apartment one last time, Maya felt a wave of sadness wash over her. Not for Daniel, but for the version of herself who'd moved in here 2 years ago full of hope and love. That girl had no idea what was coming, but she'd survived it. That had to count for something. She placed the note on the kitchen table. Short, simple, final. I'm leaving. Don't try to find me. I've contacted a lawyer. All future communication needs to go through them. Beside it, she placed the engagement ring. The diamond caught the light, sparkling. It had been beautiful once. Now it just looked like a shackle she was finally taking off. Jennifer's place became Maya's refuge. A small spare room with a bed, a lamp, and space for Luna's dog bed in the corner. It wasn't much, but it was hers. She was safe here. Daniel's reaction was exactly what Linda had warned her about. The messages started within an hour. First, they were confused. Where are you? What's going on? Then hurt. How could you do this to me? To our baby? Then angry. You have no right to keep my child from me. Then threatening. You're going to regret this. Maya blocked his number, but the messages came through social media, email from phone numbers she didn't recognize. He showed up at the hospital demanding to see her. Security escorted him out. He appeared at Jennifer's door at 2 a.m, pounding and yelling. They called the police. Getting the restraining order was one of the hardest things Maya had ever done. Standing in front of a judge, explaining why she was afraid of the father of her unborn child. Laying out the patterns of abuse for strangers to examine and judge. But the order was granted. Daniel had to stay at least 500 feet away from her at all times. He violated it 3 times in the first week. Each time Maya reported it. Each time the violations were documented. Her lawyer, a woman named Catherine who'd handled dozens of these cases, assured her this was normal. They push boundaries, Catherine explained. They test to see if you'll actually enforce it. You're doing the right thing by reporting every single violation. Maya started therapy twice a week. Dr. Foster helped her unpack everything that had happened, all the ways the relationship had damaged her, changed her, made her doubt her own reality. It was painful work. Some sessions left Maya feeling raw and exposed, like all her defenses had been stripped away. I keep thinking about all the red flags I ignored, Maya said during one session. How did I not see what was happening? Because you're a normal human being who wanted to believe the best about someone you loved, Dr. Foster replied. And because he was very good at manipulation. That's not a reflection of your intelligence or strength. It's a reflection of his tactics. Maya joined a support group for survivors of relationship abuse. Sitting in a circle with other women, hearing their stories, she realized how similar they all were. Different details, different men, but the same patterns. The isolation. The control. The cycle of tension, explosion, apology, and honeymoon. They all recognized it. They all understood it in a way people who hadn't lived it never could. I thought I was the only one, a woman named Rachel said during one meeting. I thought there was something wrong with me that made him act that way. Maya nodded. Me too. I kept thinking if I could just be better, smarter, more careful, he'd stop being angry. But it was never about us, another woman added. It was always about their need for control. These women became Maya's lifeline. They celebrated her small victories and held her through the hard days. When Maya had nightmares about Daniel finding her, they reminded her she was safe. When she doubted herself, they reminded her why she'd left. At 8 months pregnant, Maya attended a custody hearing. Daniel wanted joint custody. He painted himself as the victim, the father being kept from his child by a hysterical woman. His lawyer portrayed Maya as unstable, emotional, unfit, but Catherine was prepared. She had documentation of every incident, medical records noting Maya's anxiety and injuries, the restraining order and its violations, testimony from Dr. Kim, Linda, and even Maya's supervisor about the changes they'd witnessed in her during the relationship. The judge ordered supervised visitation only. Daniel would be allowed to see the baby, but only in a supervised facility with a court-appointed monitor present. No private contact. No opportunities to intimidate or control Maya anymore. Daniel's face when the ruling was announced would stay with Maya forever. The mask finally slipped completely and she saw the rage underneath. Pure, undiluted rage. She'd made the right choice leaving. She knew that now with absolute certainty. 3 weeks later, on a quiet Sunday morning, Maya went into labor. Jennifer drove her to the hospital, holding her hand through contractions, making terrible jokes to distract her from the pain. Maya's mom and sister arrived soon after, the family she'd pushed away during her relationship with Daniel, now surrounding her with love and support. Giving birth was hard. The hardest thing Maya had ever done, but when they placed her daughter on her chest, tiny and perfect and completely dependent on her, Maya felt something shift inside her. This was what mattered. This little person, keeping her safe, giving her a better life than the one Maya had been living. She named her Sophia. It meant wisdom. Maya hoped her daughter would have the wisdom to recognize love from control, to know her own worth, to never let anyone make her feel small. The first few months were exhausting, sleepless nights, constant feedings, the overwhelming responsibility of keeping another human alive. But Jennifer was there, helping with diapers and midnight feedings. Maya's family came by regularly, bringing food and taking turns holding Sophia so Maya could shower or sleep. She wasn't alone. She'd thought leaving Daniel meant she'd be alone, but she'd never been less alone in her life. Daniel exercised his supervised visitation rights sporadically. Sometimes he'd show up, hold Sophia for an hour while the monitor watched, then leave without saying much. Other times he'd skip his scheduled visits completely. Maya found she didn't care either way. That part of her life that had loved him, that had hoped he'd change, had finally died. Therapy continued. Maya was learning about herself, about the patterns that had made her vulnerable to someone like Daniel. She'd grown up with a critical father, always seeking approval she never quite got. That had made her susceptible to Daniel's initial attention, and later to his criticism disguised as concern. Understanding these patterns didn't erase them, but it helped. She was learning to recognize the red flags, to trust her own instincts again. On Sophia's first birthday, Maya threw a small party at Jennifer's house. Just family and close friends, people who'd stood by her, who'd helped her rebuild her life. As she watched her daughter smash cake everywhere, laughing that beautiful baby laugh, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. She thought about the woman she'd been 3 years ago, the one who'd met Daniel at that charity gala and thought she'd found something special. That woman had been so lost, so desperate to fill a void inside her that she'd mistaken intensity for love, obsession for devotion. Maya had learned the hard way that real love doesn't isolate you. It doesn't make you afraid. It doesn't require you to become smaller so someone else can feel bigger. Real love adds to your life instead of subtracting from it. She still had hard days. Days when she doubted her choices, when she felt overwhelmed by single parenthood, when she wondered if anyone would ever love her again. But those days were getting fewer and farther between. Jennifer found her standing by the window later that evening, Sophia asleep against her shoulder. "You okay?" her friend asked. "Yeah," Maya said, and she meant it. "I really am. You know what amazes me? How strong you are, how far you've come. I didn't feel strong. I felt weak for staying as long as I did. Leaving was the strong part, And you did leave. You saved yourself and Sophia. That's everything. Maya looked down at her sleeping daughter, at her perfect tiny face. She thought about the life they'd have together. It wouldn't be easy. Single parenthood never was. But it would be safe. It would be healthy. It would be theirs. She'd found both heaven and hell in Daniel's arms, just like the title of her story said. But the crucial part, the part that mattered, was the ending. She'd left. She'd saved herself. And now, holding her daughter in this quiet moment, surrounded by people who really loved her, Maya finally understood what heaven was supposed to feel like. It wasn't intensity or obsession or the desperate high of toxic love. It was this: peace, safety, the freedom to be yourself without fear, the support of people who wanted you to thrive, not just to stay. Maya had spent so long thinking she was broken, that the abuse was somehow her fault, that she deserved what happened. But therapy and time and the love of good people had taught her the truth. She wasn't broken. She'd been hurt.